Hello again, and welcome to the BetBlocker podcast. Today, we have here our friend Marian, which have been working in safer gambling for a while. Uh, Rather than me introducing you, could you tell us a little bit your story? How did you end up working in gambling?
Hi Pedro. First of all, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I appreciate it. How did I end up? Actually, it was a coincidence. To be honest, uh, I've been my entire life in the gambling industry. Actually, I have over 2 decades in the gambling industry in different roles. You name it: casino croupier, cashier, casino manager, fraud, and so on. I did all of it besides safer gambling until 3 years ago. The opportunity arose from my current employer. Uh, it was just an open job. I wanted to test it. I wanted to see what it is about. It was something new actually for Romanian market, and yeah, I was just interested. I I looked for I joined the company as a responsible gaming coordinator.
Mhm.
I started a project from scratch, and then I built up to an awesome team of 8 individuals overseeing multiple markets, and I love it.
Okay, that's good. We have talked many times, outside camera, and you told me some interesting stories. When you were like in the cruise ships and all of that. I wanted to ask you, how you said that you work most of your career in gambling in different roles in croupiers. How does it compare? Working like in a cruise ship overseas and the online industry. Could you tell us a little bit about your first days? Like in a big cruise. How did you decide that from Romania to say I'm just going to sign up to the cruise navy?
Well, it depends how much time do you have.
We got all the time you need. So
So yeah, just to make us more parallel between uh, land-based casino on the cruise ship casino, it's exactly the same like land-based casino and then online. Well, the difference was that my customers usually were coming there for like 6 days, 5 days, 7 days, just for a short vacation. However, after a while, they were returning uh, just to meet some of the employers that are working on the stuff on the cruise ship. My bad. Why? Because we were building actually good relationships. So
uh,
why I'm saying that is because the atmosphere felt like the way it should be, entertainment business, and this is all what we all trying to do. We're trying to build an entertainment business. We're trying to build an atmosphere for our customers where they can enjoy while spending some money, some time, or whatever they decide to do that day. Basically, put it like this: it's just a way for them, to get out from the house, to get out from the ordinary jobs, the ordinary day, and get out. Regardless if you go out in the town on a restaurant, regardless if you go for a drink or I don't know for whatever hobby you have, the same thing should happen when you go for gambling. When you do that, you should enjoy it. You should do it only for entertainment, only for fun.
mm. uh, uh,
Yeah. Now,
I wanted to ask you because, for example, when you work in a cruise, I suppose that the safer gambling concerns. I don't have any clue how it works. Maybe a bit lesser. Okay, you don't have time to know the customers properly if they're going to be 6 days. Probably, I don't know, like the limits and all of that on the tables. Maybe, I don't know, like smaller than in a casino, like in Las Vegas or something. If someone probably wants to gamble seriously, they don't go on a cruise. They probably go on a, to a place, I don't know, where they have a some proper casino. So how different is, the sort of, are there limits on a cruise or something like that, or how does it work, a casino on a ship?
You're gonna be surprised. Actually, the limits are quite high. Indeed, there are limits on everything, on slot machines, on table games, but the limits are quite high. Well, obviously not on all the tables. So basically, you have, the casino is divided into sections where you have low limit tables and higher limit tables. So people, they can join wherever they feel comfortable, or where they feel, where they can afford.
Mhm.
Now the difference, actually, you emphasize on the limits, but actually the difference is not how much they're betting or how much we're imposing onto them.
Mhm.
Is the reason they enter the casino. They don't enter with the thoughts of, hey, I need to get rich over the night. I need to change my life. That's it. This is the casino. I'm gonna make a bet and I'm gonna make 10 times. No, the difference is that they want to spend some time while gambling, whether they win or lose. They still stand up, with a smile on their face, and that is, I think that is the best thing that happened to me while working on the ship. And I actually went there to stay only one contract, because I just wanted to travel, around the world. And a contract is like 6 months, and I ended up working more than 10 years, almost 11.
I think all of us, we always went to the industry. "Oh, I'm going to do this for until I find another job or something," and then it's like, okay, you're hooked into the gambling industry. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And then one more great thing that, I could observe. Now I'm talking a little bit. I'm comparing with the experience that I have right now as a safer gambling manager. The positive part was also, so let's say you wake up, as you travel on a cruise ship, and you wake up first thing in the morning. Everybody would go to breakfast. Everybody would enjoy the breakfast with the family, and then slowly it gets hot outside. So everybody will go to the pool. There would be activities. In between activities, there are certain times of the day when it's quiet. There is nothing much going on around. So that would be the time when the customers were coming to the casino. But then again, if when lunchtime comes, or when dinner, or we used to have shows on the ship as well. When the time was coming to spend it with the family or with friends, they were just saying, "Hey, that's it for me. Goodbye. I'm gonna step out a little bit. And I'm gonna enjoy. I'm gonna enjoy the other, the other part of the vacation as well."
Okay.
So
I get it. Was any time, in all those 10 years, where there was any customers that raised a concern, or back then it was a bit less, so you were a little bit less aware, that have been, back then, before your safer gambling career, did anyone ever raise a flag like, oh, this person, is in trouble?
I did had an experience in all these years, but not from a gambling perspective. Actually, it just so happened that actually I had zero experience to talk with someone with such thoughts. But it just happened that somebody passed by, and she never stepped into the casino, but she came to the cruise ship for her after her wedding, for her honeymoon. And relations, how it goes. I'm not gonna go into details, but something happened, and obviously she was upset. She was crying. It was the guy was the good love of his life, and she actually had some thoughts which they weren't really positive.
Mhm.
Uh, Accidentally, I would say, or maybe the destiny. I don't know. You name it. She passed by me. It happened that I was in a break, so I had time, to stay with her and chat. And to be honest, all I did was just listen to her story, just offer her a shoulder, if I can say,
Mhm.
uh, until I actually called a psychologist or doctor that we had on board, because he was the most specialized person actually to make sure she's safe and she stays safe. So yeah, I did had only one experience in 10 years. I was lucky because I reacted the way I supposed to. I did not know at that time, to be honest. But yeah, everything went well.
Okay, it's a little bit, sometimes it's a crisis situation, can be gambling, can be a breakup, so, it's this sort of thing. Okay, if, maybe you're in the right place at the right time, and, instinctively, you just know that you just have to, listen to the person. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, moving away from the, cruise industry and all that, how come that you end up working like in this sort of online space?
Well, first of all, I would have never leave that job unless there was something more important. And everybody wants a career in life, but sometimes family comes first. Sometimes, always. My bad. It was a poor choice of word. So I was with my wife. Actually, I met my wife there. Later on, she became my wife, and we wanted a baby. Now, working on a cruise ship, basically, you're a sailorman. You stay 5 6 months at sea, then 1 month, 2 months at home. It would be tough, not impossible, but tough to have a baby and leave them home and then go back to work, separate, not seeing your baby, growing and so on. So, I mean, I wasn't in that situation, in that financial situation where I have to do it. So, all I did, I draw a line with my wife and we said, okay, we need to stop. We need to draw a line. We need to go home, establish home, and continue with our family. And this is what we did. We came back. We settled down to Romania. The baby came quite soon. I have a very handsome 3-year-old boy, and yeah, everything else is just it comes with.
Okay, so I suppose the sort of thing that probably I say, like, sometimes you have a choice, sometimes you don't. If you don't do it, maybe something that then you regret, for the rest of your life. Okay, I spent like the first 4 years of my son, only coming 3 months, a year,
Yeah,
something
I remember.
something like
Yeah.
that. Okay, and now, with the company that you work for, in terms of markets, what are the main markets that you focus in?
When I joined, so I'm going to tell you a small history right now. When I joined, we only focused on Romania. That was the only market. At least that was the market that I was in charge for. But then slowly, we built our business into Poland, into
Mhm.
Serbia, and since last year into Brazil as well. However, we also joined forces with another company from Belgium. So now I'm overwatching 5 markets with ambition to grow bigger and bigger, and to become one of the most important company when it comes to gambling and entertainment.
Okay, in terms of safer gambling, how do you see the different markets, like Romania, like Poland, Brazil,
So my opinion is probably a little bit different than what anyone else would say. It depends how you look, at safer gambling. Now, if you want to be an operator who just follows compliance, then yes, there will be huge differences between markets because the requirements are different. The law is different in every market. But if you want to be an operator who goes extra mile and does a little bit more for its players to ensure that they feel comfortable to ensure that they trust your services and your company, then there will be no difference between markets. And I believe the maturity that we reach so far is here already. Uh, let's say when we go to a new market,
Mhm.
we follow a checklist to make sure that we are in compliance. But that is it's already let's say it's something that goes without saying because all those things we're doing it already and much more. So it's not much of a difference. What would be a little bit difference in between the behavior of a player, let's say. While in certain markets, let's say Romania, the players they're used to, to be aggressive. They're used to say things which actually they don't mean it. They're in general they're very friendly when you get a chance to talk with them by the phone and so on. However, when it goes through a chat or to an email, they people they maybe they have in mind that they don't talk with a real person on the other side. So then they express a lot more aggressively, but they actually don't mean it. So when you,
This is something interesting. I remember, back in the day, when I worked for, for, a company, my first company, Marathon Bet. Sometimes, people, were could be quite rude in the chat, and sometimes you say,
yeah,
I'm going to give them a call,
exactly.
and then the person, backs down. Or I remember even before, when I used to work at IBM, you
Mhm.
know we were doing the technical support for Amex. Sometimes, I remember, like, the Amex people making cry, my staff, at IBM, and the next time that we're calling, I say, okay, so you're on the seventh floor. I'm going to pop and have a chat with you, like a friendly chat, not, and then they were super nice, super polite, super polite. So sometimes that distance, or like people they're on the car, the beeping and all of that, and then when they come out, they're actually, they're more themselves, somehow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess that human touch, it makes the difference.
Okay. uh, so what, apart from the way they express themselves, what other things, you see that, it's a bit like culturally maybe different, I don't know, between people in Belgium or people in Brazil or people like in Romania, when it comes to safer gambling.
Oh, that is a tough question.
Or, sometimes it's like, I don't know, or, you know, I think they're the same.
Look, when it comes to their behavior related to gambling, we follow the usual harm indicators that our industry has.
Mhm.
Does a player, stays long sessions? I don't know, 5 hours, 6 hours, and so on. Is a player betting higher than he was usually doing it before? And to give you, the first example that comes in my mind, in the last 6 months, his average bet is $10, and suddenly he goes up and he started to play $50. Obviously, there is a spike there, and you're wondering why. Uh, or, for example, someone is using multiple deposit methods, which again it can give a sign of compulsive behavior. Uh, what else? Chasing their losses, and actually, this is probably the most, in my opinion, is the most dangerous thing to do. When a player bets a certain amount of money, they lose it and then they return to play double, triple, and so on, thinking that I've already lost. It cannot happen to me again. Well, the thing is, what you're doing, you're playing a game of math. The probabilities are always the same. It doesn't change the fact that in the
Yeah.
past one game or with 5 minutes there was a different outcome. Your outcome will be based on your overall odds and so on. So yeah, when it comes to get back to your question, um, overall we still follow these harm indicators, or I still follow these harm indicators,
Okay,
which gives me the best idea.
so if it's really like, look, the markers of harms that they tend to be the same, across different cultures. Maybe I don't know, like I was trying, maybe in the way that they may behave. Maybe when we talk with them. I don't know, like my imagination is that maybe a Brazilian or a Romanian may be a bit more forthcoming. Maybe a person from Belgium may be a bit more reserved. But again, it's a bit like stereotype.
Mhm.
May not be anything like that.
Yeah, I don't normally that, and that is not our policy either.
Mm.
uh, because even in one market you have multiple personalities.
Yeah.
Maybe even take your friends for example.
Mm.
Everybody has a multiple personal, I mean everybody has a different personality. So when you want to check if someone is, it is developing a compulsive behavior, you should check that person only, and against his own behavior, not against a certain threshold, let's call it. Actually, it's good thing that you gave me some examples, because now I understand the scope of the question. So for example, let's say, uh, based on the average salary in Romania, maybe it would be too much to lose 2,000 RON, which is roughly 400 euro in a month. Okay, so okay, let's go to Belgium, where the lifestyle is a little bit higher, the average salary it's a little bit higher. Should we compare those players, though that amount of money, with the same amount of money? Definitely not, because first of all, the market is different, the salaries are different, the income is different. Then each player, even if it belongs to the same country, same city, even same company, you have a different income. Besides the income, you have different expenses, and maybe maybe one person has one kid, and while the other one has three kids, and he has less time to spend gambling. So it doesn't really matter where you're from. It matters just you personally. What is your behavior? What are your needs? What are you looking for? Whenever you compare something, you have to compare with that person's own history.
I mean, and it makes sense. I remember when I was in Bucharest, in the center. I
Yeah.
remember I was like shocked, with the amount of sport cars, and really like, like, wow, there's a lot of wealth, and it's me. I was thinking, okay, um, you know, maybe not being very cultured, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's going to be a bit, poorer, but the center of, you know, any city where you go in the world, any capital, you're going to have a lot of wealth. You can have, you know, people that they're going to be millionaires, no matter if you go to New York, Bucharest, or, Madrid. That's the way it is in a globalized world. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you working in the industry
Hmm.
that you can tell us?
Now I'm gonna tell you only the good part.
Okay.
There are certain stuff that they're not for public ears.
Okay.
No, funniest thing. I mean, I wouldn't call it funny. Just just fun, not funny, just fun.
Okay.
So actually, this was when I first started it, when I was 18, 19 years old, and I started to work in a land-based casino from Bucharest. And you before online actually industry, players they used to come in a land-based casino, dress up, coming with friends, with girlfriend or wives, and so on, having fun. And then After a few hours, obviously, you lose money, and you're expecting for that person at least. At my age, those kind of money, it was too much. So you're expecting for a person who's losing that kind of money, which you probably make in 1 year, you're expecting for that person to be mad, to be angry, and so on. And that wasn't the case. There was actually a group of players which uh, every weekend they used to go in a club, but not for them, because they were already 40, 50. Clubbing wasn't for them anymore. They were actually going for us, for the casino dealers.
Okay.
And uh, they were renting few, they were reserving few tables, filling them up with drinks and so on, and they were waiting for us to finish work. And from casino, instead of taking a bus or personal car and go home, we used to have this minibus of the casino. And the minibus, he knew the road already. Whoever goes in at that time, like 10 p.m., midnight, or 2 a.m., it doesn't go home. It goes straight away to the club and stops us there. So over there, we were meeting with obviously with our players, with our colleagues, but not only from one casino. This was happening for other casinos in the same town. So it was like, imagine a team building for the entire industry organized by the players, and that
Okay.
was happening every week, and it was awesome.
Okay. That sounds interesting. I never heard anything like that. Uh, were there, I don't know, owners of the
Yeah.
casinos or something worries that, oh, this player may try to, no.
No, actually, my owner was coming as well. No,
Okay. Okay,
no,
so
it
be
was.
like,
I was lucky. It was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna speak like a corporatist right now, but it was like a family. I'm not an HR guy, trust me, but
I
you know.
know, I know, I know. Okay. You know, do
Okay,
you
let
go?
me let me
Yeah.
tell you a funny one as well, because you
Okay.
wanted a funny one.
Yeah.
But that is exactly my first week working in the casino.
Okay.
So, uh, I went there. I did the school. Obviously, I was a trainee, and you know how players, they have all these superstitions. There's so many. So I went there on a table. It was obvious that I'm a trainee because I was shaking, I could barely talk, and so on. And I was dealing on the roulette table. So after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't remember. The players keep winning with me. He was making money, so obviously he was very happy. And in his mind, it was because I'm bringing him luck. What happened after a few spins? When I took the ball and spin it in the wheel, it jumped out and it hit
Oh,
his eye.
on his side.
Yeah, and obviously, he got brown. I freaked out. My business,
Oh,
my manager freaked out as well. You
so you
know,
give him a black eye with the.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So I don't know. For a few seconds, the entire casino stopped making noise. You couldn't hear not even the slot machines anymore.
A pin drop. I was thinking probably if that happened in Las Vegas or in a big casino, and you give a black eye to a customer, probably they'll sue your ass. No?
And nah, I mean, obviously everybody thought about it, but about this. However, he was so happy, and he really thought that I'm his lucky charm,
Okay.
and nothing mattered. Don't worry about it. Let's continue play. So we continue playing. Obviously, he was still winning, you know. Uh, but then I did again a no spin. A no spin is when you throw the ball and it doesn't go in the wheel. This time I didn't hit him, but it jumped across the casino, and on the opposite side of my table there was a restaurant.
Oh my god.
And it felt on the table of a couple who was eating. Obviously, everybody started to laugh, but then eventually the time came for me to go for a break.
Yeah.
My customer didn't want to let me go for a break. Stay here longer. Don't worry. If you hit someone, I'm gonna be responsible. No worry.
All right. That's a nice story, you know. I remember once, that I got invited to a fancy dinner in London from I think it was a World Pay, or one of those card processors.
Mhm,
And I remember that I thought, because there was a guy with a top hat and gloves, and I thought it was like I don't know, like the receptionist or the bellboy of the hotel or something, and he came to me and said, "Oh, I'm coming here for this dinner, that they're
mhm,
organizing. Do you know where is it? Something." And the guy was, "Oh, I'm the CEO, of the company, so I'm lucky that I didn't do anything, like, oh, there's my coat, or anything like that, but I must be like, you know it finally be like too much, with this sort of white gloves and a top hat, so there's always funny things going on in the industry. Marian, I wanted to ask you a thing, uh, that probably a lot of safer gambling people, uh, you know struggle with. What are your advice, to let your you know director of compliance or whoever you report to, go a bit of above and beyond in terms of safer gambling? Okay, there's the regulation, but sometimes it's healthy to be a little bit above the regulation. What do you do, or how do you normally try to you know convince the person that, okay, this is good, even if it's not mandatory?
So it's not an easy road. That I can tell you for sure. Uh, or at least it wasn't an easy road in my case because when I joined there, the project was very little. So I had to start quite a lot, procedure, policies. Then I had to contact organizations that can help players with gambling addiction. I had to contact and make contract with certain applications for help of like BetBlocker or other application that could analyze the player's behavior. So basically, starting the program from scratch is hard to sell something internally, right? But overall, what is the purpose of a business? Is to bring profit, right, and to have sustainability. And if you want to see your business as something that harms players, then you're in the wrong field of work. If you want to have a business that cares about players and that has sustainability, then you have to invest in responsible gaming and you have to invest in security of data, and basically you have to do everything for the players to trust that the moment they step through the door, let's say, to your business, they can trust you to do the right thing for their safety. And
I mean, I suppose it's a bit like, and it's a bit of an old, sort of simile, when we talk about the car, but you wouldn't buy a car without a seatbelt, even if this,
exactly,
look, this is a Bentley, but it comes without seatbelts. Yeah, I don't want it, or without airbags, or without, ABS, So I suppose, but sometimes, you get asked, and I agree with you, that this is a very difficult role, particularly in some companies, because sometimes, particularly if you work in a publicly listed company, sometimes, okay, the CEO, sometimes they're not there for long, and okay, when you talk about sustainability, sometimes we're talking about years, maybe half a decade, maybe a full decade, and sometimes, companies they're looking for the next quarter, and you go and you say, oh, we can do this for sustainability or that. Sometimes it's okay, is this a regulatory requirement? No. Okay, then we're not going to do it, so I don't know. Yeah, suppose that it depends maybe on the type of company, on the philosophy, on the maybe the longevity of the people at the top, because sometimes you get this sort of CEO that they change like every 6 months, year, 2 years, and it's very difficult. And I suppose that the role of a CEO is also very difficult. You need to, if you don't get the profits or whatever that the shareholders or the owners are expecting, then there's a queue of CEOs.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Look, I mean, every project that I've done so far, I had to sell it internally. I mean, um, I also have colleagues and senior management which they're open to discussions every single time. But even so, I had to sell it internally. But something that I learned throughout the years is, look, there is no business that's gonna stay, that gonna stay for long if it's not profitable. Now, casino industry is been out there for many years, decades, if not, right? So it wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be profitable. You know how the games are. Mathematically, it's everything is mathematical. You cannot beat the math. So the way I like to explain, actually, even to my players, I like to say that, look, this is not something that you can cheat. The math is there, the odds are there, the probabilities are that an event will happen. So my relation with you right now is not to make sure I make most profit from you. Is to make sure that you feel comfortable while you spend some time with me. And this is what I was actually telling even to my players. Why? And they were like, why? But you don't want to win everything right now. And I used to tell them, but how good is that gonna do? Because you're not gonna come back tomorrow. You're not gonna come back after 1 month. You're not gonna come back after 1 year. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to spend, let's say, even if that money all goes to my pocket, I'm going to spend it all, or I'm going to reinvest it, considering that you're coming back every day, and there's nothing good will come out of it. My purpose is to make sure that you're coming here, even if you don't play much, even if it's just leads and bits and pieces. My purpose is to make sure that you're coming continuously and that you're happy no matter what is the outcome. At the end of the day, if we can shake hands and both of us were happy, nothing more you want from a business.
I mean, it's I think the main sometimes what I see is the misunderstanding sometimes, or maybe in the past, sometimes that make money, get rich. Now the ads, they're very different. But before, I remember ads where you get gold, sport cars,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, this is in the past, but now it's been like more about entertainment. But there's people, that sometimes they struggle, they struggle with gambling, with all the thing. What can we do for them, because I never met the person, like in safer gambling, that is okay, you know I don't care about most of the people. They work in safer gambling because it's something that is, for some reason, normally they feel that they want to help the player. Okay, there's people that they're more prepared, less prepared, but it's not an easy job. Normally it's a job that is tough. You get a lot of, you know, sometimes aggro from other departments. It's a uphill battle. Probably if you work
Yeah.
in marketing, life it's easier. Okay, we have this campaign. Here's the money, and then show the graphs. I mean, I'm sure that it's probably also very difficult because you have a lot of creative people from other companies that probably they are trying the same. But yeah, I always find that you know people that tend to work in safer gambling and that they stick to the job. Is because they feel that drive to help. Where do you think your drive to help is coming?
Look, I mean, I would say in short, what actually one of my customer said to me in the past, and then I'm going to elaborate. There is a way to win always when you gamble. Do you believe me?
Yes, I do work for the casino.
Mm. I was sure you're gonna say something like this. No, the way to win is for you to know where is the door, where is the exit, and use it on the right time. That is that is the shortest version. So what can we do for players is to educate them, to teach them to stop when they should. That is the only way. And by that I mean every player should be helped or educated to control his emotions, to control his impulses. Uh, and that can be done only through education or to specialized help. Actually, this question came 1 week after I just finalized. I mean, not me personally, but I helped that study in Romania. We made a study to see what is the difference between having only a few psychologist sessions for a compulsive gambler to 15, 20, and so on. And what the study did made took a group of people, made everyone to record their actions, to come back after a few days and say what changed. And they had their own journeys to write every action that they did, every thoughts that they made. Obviously, there was some help to understand what everybody should react. Actually, uh, I might be able to provide you with a copy of the of the journey. So at the end of the first few sessions, let's say there was a quality of life for the players which was very very bad. Let's say, however, the player itself didn't, or the person in this case, didn't want to open themselves, didn't want to say what is their actual problem. Why do they gamble so much that they cannot afford? They just basically they didn't trust the doctor on the other side of the table. However, throughout the time through many sessions, they started to trust and they started to open themselves. And the team of psychiatrists of psychologists, they managed uh, to discover that in the background there is another problem that makes them lose control, and that can be, you name it, a problem from childhood, uh, some stress at work, some stress at home, or some health problems. It can be anything.
I
Now,
mean, it makes sense. With any addictions, we find this sort of stuff. Like, okay, you can use it as a way to numb the pain. Okay, you can drink, you can take painkillers, or you can gamble. So it's a way to
exactly,
move away from the
exactly,
psychological pain. Yeah.
exactly. Now, what they did through the study, it wasn't to limit the player to tell them don't do a certain thing. No, it was to teach them to control their own impulses, their own emotions. And I believe this is what we can all do better as an industry. Of course, with help, with specialized help, not with let's say an employee like me. I do have experience, with customers and in the industry, but I'm not a specialized person to treat such situations.
I mean, I always thought that because, okay, people that they work in safer gambling, they don't need to be psychologists or therapists because it's not the place. But what I always say is that it's good if they have some, maybe counseling skills, good listening skill, because I think so. Oops. So I think sometimes, you know, players they may be more open, to discuss some gambling related problems, you know, with CS support, with a safer gambling person, with uh, account manager, they can be very helpful, you know, on walking the person through the first steps, maybe gambling, maybe something else, many times you talk with a customer, maybe borderline, struggling with gambling, but then they may tell you that they're struggling with something else in their life, and okay, again, you don't need to tell them what to do with their life, but sometimes if you point them in the right direction, actually you can help.
Exactly. I mean, it definitely helps if you know how to listen, if you know how to redirect a person towards the appropriate help. It's definitely a huge help. But again, I think the overall need for the industry is to educate more both the player and the employee at the same time.
Okay. uh, last week, I was in a conference, we were talking about, you know problem gambling, among, people that work in the industry, and something that, because I have worked in different companies, and you always get people, like, hey Pedro, can I speak with you? I have a friend, yeah, the story of my friend, and five minutes later, oh, it's not my friend. And it's a bit like, okay, what you were saying, okay, we need to learn to take care of both our clients and also about ourselves, and our colleagues and everyone. Sometimes it's, just not gambling, it's any type of problems. uh, I wanted to ask you, what would you tell, people, I don't know, like, that they are doing the first steps, into the safer gambling realm, or that they work maybe in customer support or in another department, and say, okay, maybe I want to work, in this area. What would you tell them, if you get someone from, I don't know, customer support, and say, Marian, do you have 5 minutes? Look, I'm thinking about applying for a position in your team. What would you?
Well, actually, here I'm thinking more from an operational perspective. I'm actually in recently I hired somebody, so uh, I need them to step in quite quick into the role. So first, I dig into their background. I wanted to see if they have experience with customer, if they're empathic. I would, in my opinion, if you're not empathic, if you don't know how to listen, you should not you should not be in an industry, in any kind of industry that deals directly with customers. So that for me, that's mandatory in order to work in a safer gambling department. Then obviously, I check for bits and pieces, whether had experience as a responsible gaming, whether as an analyst, because being in iGaming industry, you do a lot of analysis of the player, transactions, behavior, chats, communications, and so on. You do actually quite a lot of analysis. Now, what would be the first thing? Actually, the first thing that I always said, I ask everybody to separate a little bit from what they know about the industry, because right now, uh, it's not only about attracting customer is not only about offering entertainment, it's also about trying to protect. So I want them to put themselves in the skin, to put the player hat, and not just a regular player, but a player with problems. And I want them, this is actually a conversation that I have it in the first days at work. Whenever they read, for example, a message or an email from a customer, I want them to understand the essence of that message. And to give you probably the most easiest example, which actually happens every single time. You have a customer who comes and say, "Hey, give me a bonus. You never give me a bonus. Come on, give me a bonus, or I'm gonna kill myself." And we're talking about a $5 bonus. Now, I'm asking, and maybe I can ask you as well. Do you think that person might have gambling related problems? That was a question. Do you think someone who comes to you and say, "Hey, give me something,
I mean,
otherwise"?
I think it's a bit extreme. Of course, I think okay, I wouldn't make a threat. If I'm not in a difficult place. So normally when you get people like that, that's a big red flag.
Okay, now let's take another case then. You have a customer who joins and you just talk, random conversation, and then without asking anything in exchange, they start telling you, "Oh, I have so much problem, these days. Uh, my my boss throw me out. I don't have a job anymore. My wife left me, and all these things."
I'll be very
Now,
worried too. Yeah, so.
exactly. This is the actually the second case is the one that is most concerning. What I do for the first one, it's threat. It is a threat that I take it seriously. I analyze the account. I want to check if the type of conversation with the customer, not just the one from today, it's at the same trend. I want to check if he gambles a lot. I want to check what bonuses he's talking about. Is he talking about some important amount of money or not? And all this I put them together, and after that, I make the decision to contact the player. However, in the second case, I don't think anymore. I don't analyze nothing. I just pick up the phone and call, because that is a person who needs immediate help.
Mm.
So something this kind of examples I'm giving to someone who either is new to the department or wants to join. I'm explaining them this kind of situations, what they can reach, and yeah, all these details.
I mean, I always, advise, of that look, there's red lines, and normally when someone makes a threat, it's better like that. Look, I'm going to end my life, or I'm going to kill myself, and just say, look, you cannot keep playing, you know, here. That's normally what I recommend. It's a bit like, if you go to a plane and say, I got a hand grenade, so it
Yeah,
will be responsible for the crew to, leave you flying, just even if they believe, okay, the likelihood is this guy went through X-ray, through, the security, he's not going to have anything on them, but they still need to get you out of the plane, and contact the support, and the likelihood again, is that okay, you may not have anything, on you that is dangerous, but you know they need to do the job. That's why people, they don't joke about these things when they are on a plane. It's a bit of a red line. Okay, what are the things, you say, okay, that you put them some examples to see how they react. What else do you do? Something that I used to do is to do a role play, and pretend, that I'm a client, and a customer, and I give them a difficult time.
uh, well, I kind of did, but I didn't keep my role play until the end. But what I usually do, I ask them if they had any difficult customers in the past, or difficult situations for that
Yeah.
case. Uh, and I wanted to see how they reacted, how they analyzed the whole case. I want more to see not how keen they are to details, but more to make sure that when they dealt with the situation, they were empathic, they weren't criticizing the player, they were listening to the problem, and after that, they were offering some help or some situation, so obviously, not the candidates, they don't expect to. I'm not expecting for them to know what I'm looking for. Most of the candidates, when you ask them something like, hey, did you have a difficult situation, how did you handle it, they're focusing only to the solution. They want to prove that they knew how to handle, but they're not really expecting that I'm interested in all the meanings as well.
Yeah, the process sometimes is more important than the outcome.
Exactly.
Okay, last just one last question before we finish. I wanted to ask you, how do you think that the whole safer gambling, uh, scene is going to evolve? What do you think is going to happen in the next, couple of years? Now we don't even talk about 5 years. 5 years we may be cyborgs.
No, I mean, it's good question. It's good question. Obviously, there's the industry is trying to do its best to protect the players, but the technology is so advanced these days that the truth is you don't always keep up with it. Uh, Sometimes the restriction that an operator or even a regulator is imposing might be too much. So my worries, maybe it touches a little bit a different subject right now, but my worries is that over restriction, over protection for players might redirect everybody away from license operator to black markets. And over there is no control whatsoever.
I mean, it's a big worry that I have. Look, I'm pro regulation. I think it's super important. But the problem is that it's really easy. To jump the fence. Okay, you have the player. You know, uh, uh, it's so easy to go into a unregulated market. It's not much of an effort. They're going to give you a bonus. They're not going to ask you. And I think sometimes it's okay. You have the regulated where you have to maybe go through hoops, and the unregulated where okay, of course you don't have protection, but so it's a dangerous thing. And I think sometimes the balance, uh, risk
Exactly.
versus reward. And I know that the regulator, they try the best, but sometimes it's okay. We do this, and then they may get an undesired outcome. It's not like because I remember a few years ago, maybe like five, when we started talking about the black market. At the beginning, some regulators, they were like, oh, this is just crying wolf, trying to scare, and now it's good, that at least the they're paying attention. It's a bit like the solution as is not easy. I wouldn't want to be on their shoes, because damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Exactly, and thank you. You use quite an important and strong word, balance. It's important to find the right balance between limits, between regulations and protection. So we need to offer the right protection for the players, but at the same time, we should not limit their right to choose, because when we do that, we're just gonna lose them completely. Now, the way I see the industry so far, I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, "Look, we're doomed." Excuse my language. But now, in the past 5 years, I can see that companies that are investing more and more in their programs for player protection. Uh, there are more ONGs on the market, and not just the most common one that everybody knew, international. Right now you find local markets in local markets as well. There are so many tools right now at the market on the market that can limit the players. So we're moving towards the right direction, definitely. Are we moving fast enough? Are we doing things good enough and fast enough to protect our player? I think it remains to see. But what I can tell you, we can only keep trying. And if you help one player today and you didn't help none yesterday, you have one more than yesterday, right? So if you do this every day, then you're on the right track.
Hmm. So, Marian, thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to seeing you around soon. Okay,
Sure. Thank you, Pedro.
take
Take
care.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to end the